Welcome to episode 52 of the Let's Talk Thyroid podcast, where today we are talking all things food, glorious, thyroid-friendly food. And I'm going to introduce you to my guest and we're going to dive right in because we've got lots to cover. I know I say it in the beginning of pretty much every episode, but I know you're going to love this one. Ginny was a fabulous guest and just a really relatable person. I think you're going to really enjoy her story and her health tips. But first of all, let me tell you about Ginny, who is also known as the Hypothyroid Chef. So you'll want to connect with her on Instagram at Hypothyroid Chef. Check out her website where she's got lots of great recipes and other thyroid health information, which is hypothyroidchef.com. And she's got a podcast called Thyroid Healthy Bites. So they're all the best ways to connect with Ginny. But she's a thyroid health coach, a cooking instructor, patient advocate. She is a Cordon Bleu-trained chef and food writer and cooking instructor. So she has dedicated a lot of her life to teaching people about how to cook and about health. And when she was diagnosed with Hashimoto's, she's been on her own health journey, which has, of course, influenced then what she's gone on to do and how she's become passionate to support other people in their thyroid healing journeys as well. You're going to find in this conversation, but also on all her platforms, she specializes in all that gluten-free, dairy-free, paleo and autoimmune paleo recipes. So if you're looking for somewhere to start, you'll definitely want to follow her, check out her recipes and her programs. If you want to learn more about Ginny, I'm going to put her full bio in the show notes, but just connect with her on her platforms and enjoy the rest of this episode. Hi, and welcome to the Let's Talk Thyroid podcast, where we discuss different aspects of living a healthy thyroid lifestyle, positively and practically, so that you can really thrive and not just survive. So join me, your host, Annabelle Bateman, and let's talk thyroid. Well, welcome, Ginny, to the Let's Talk Thyroid podcast. I'm really looking forward to talking all things food and thyroid with you today.
Oh, I'm so glad to be here, Annabelle. It's always fun to meet a fellow thyroid thriver and foodie. So we've already had lots to talk about. I feel like we have a juicy conversation.
We better hit record or we're going to have had all this amazing conversation. No one will have heard it. Yeah, I know. I think we have a lot in common and I don't doubt we're going to have lots of really fun, yummy conversation today. Yeah. But why don't we just start, Ginny, with you? Can you just give us, if people don't know who you are, haven't come across Hypothyroid Chef yet, can you just tell us a little bit about who you are? Yeah, and then we might dive a little bit more into your thyroid story after that.
Okay, sure. Yeah, Hypothyroid Chef features thyroid healthy recipes and lifestyle. I launched it in 2015 as part of, my own healing journey and just wanting to share what I was learning as a Hashimoto's patient who was trying to use recipes and lifestyle to reclaim my health. And so it became, just a home for that and a way to connect with other people who were on the same path. And I love to research too and develop recipes, of course. So it just gave me a creative outlet to do that. And for the last few years, it's actually been gathering cobwebs because I partnered with Dana Bowman, previously the founder of Thyroid Nation, and we created this massive lifestyle support platform for thyroid patients called Thyroid Refresh, rest in peace, which is now no more, but I'm back to Hypothyroid Chef full-time and feel like the time that I had running Thyroid Refresh and Thyroid 30 just gave me so much, so many more skills on how to connect with people online, how to serve thyroid patients, what this community really needs and is looking for help with. And so it's been really fun. I just opened the doors of my revamped, I call it Hypothyroid Chef 2.0. I just opened the doors in September of this year. So it's still kind of fresh and sparkly, and it feels really good to be back just focusing, of course, on lifestyle and health and all that stuff, but, really focusing more on recipes because that's just who I am. And it's a huge passion of mine and always will be. So that feels really good.
Yeah. Look, I mean, I've looked I have seen, the thyroid refresh and the thyroid 30 in the past. And yeah, it was like, whoa, that's a big project. Amazing to have that platform. It was an amazing platform by the looks of it, but it's a lot of work, isn't it?
It was, and
Yeah.
it really just didn't survive the pandemic, and
Right.
sad to have to close the doors to that. But we're
It's okay.
thyroid
Yeah.
drivers. We know about
Yeah.
the magic of transformation,
Yeah.
right? So this
Yeah.
is just,
It's all part of
coming out of the
it, isn't it?
chrysalis yet
Yeah.
again. And
Yeah.
it's been awesome, the reception of
Mm.
Hypothyroid Chef, because I think people just gravitate to that. They're like, please help me. This is a huge problem for thyroid patients where they feel really lost and overwhelmed about what to eat
Yeah.
and what not to eat, and
Yeah.
how to find recipes that are like doable and family friendly and all of that. So, and that's what I do. It isn't just my livelihood. This is my life. I'm a mom. I'm a busy working woman, and I don't want to spend all day in the kitchen. And I also want to eat really delicious meals that support my thyroid and overall health. So it just feels really aligned, and it's been really fun so far.
Yeah, great. I mean, I think when you do work for yourself and your health and your passion becomes your business, you've got to love what you do, and you got to stay. I think we've all got to stay. We just got to be true to who we are. We stay in our own lanes, and we're all so different. Like you and I are similar. I've got some similar, story and passions, but we're still different, and so it's all going to play out differently. And
Right.
I think I didn't say this before we hit record, but I thought I'll have to mention it. I just love finding all these new friends all around the world. You said something about about that with someone else that you'd interviewed previously, and it was like, you'd found a new friend. I'm like, that's how I feel with the podcast. I feel really privileged that I've made all these beautiful friends who are similar passions, but all serving the thyroid community slightly differently. But in a sense, I guess I feel like we're all working together.
Very much so. Yeah, that's been one of the coolest parts about it. And after being more of like an editor at Thyroid Refresh, now I'm really stepping into my passion for not just recipes, but health coaching. And I'm currently a functional medicine health coach candidate and certification for that currently. And that's been really fun. And I just feel like every day I'm meeting more and more people who are, it's like, this is my tribe. This is, and these are all such amazing people. And this, I feel the same way, having, connected with so many people in the thyroid community. Like we're kind of amazing. we're really, we've been through it. We've had to really, take ownership of our health and go through some serious, transformation like we've talked about. And just a really awesome group of people who are devoted to this mission of, living well with hypothyroidism or Hashimoto's or what have you, or without a thyroid. So that's been, I agree. That's been an awesome part of this journey.
I've really enjoyed those connections. And so Ginny, are you happy to share a little bit of your thyroid story, and then we'll dive right into all the food, just a little bit, like just to give us a bit of context of, how long have you known you've had a thyroid problem? How do you manage it? How does your thought? I know we could be here for 3 days probably, because most of our thyroid stories are not simple, and say simply it's difficult. But the Reader's Digest version of Ginny's thyroid story.
Okay. I was diagnosed in 2011, really shortly after the birth of my son. I think he was about 2 months old, and my doctor asked me how I was doing. Of course, I was exhausted.
Yeah.
I'm up all night with a newborn and
Yeah.
breastfeeding and all of that. So I really hadn't noticed a lot of major symptoms that I felt were strange. But she said, let's run some tests, let's see how like your iron's doing and your vitamin D, and we'll run a thyroid test. So I'm grateful to her for doing that. And she did, discover that I had postpartum hypothyroidism. Now, for a lot of us who have that, you might come out of that. I wasn't one of those people. So for the first 4 years, that was 2011. So for the first 4 years, I just got the United States standard of care, and which was TSH testing only and treatment with levothyroxine. And I go in annually to have that tested and adjusted if need be. And every year I'd say, I don't feel like myself. I just feel tired all the time. And yeah, I'm a new mom, and, but this is just like, my brain doesn't feel like it's working like it used to. I just feel like my fire's kind of going out. And I heard what a lot of thyroid patients hear, which is so frustrating, which is just that you're getting older, you're a new mom, this is normal, your TSH is normal, and your medication is fine. So it has nothing to do with your thyroid. And it's basically all in your head. And, as each year went on, it just got worse and worse to where I was sick like almost all the time. My body just wasn't thriving. And I would get a cold, for example, and then that would turn into like strep throat and then tonsillitis and then a double ear infection. I was on all these antibiotics, and I used to be a person who never got sick. I'd also get laryngitis. I had several rounds of laryngitis that would last for 3 weeks at a time.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Whispering or not being able to talk at all for 3 weeks. I mean, it was incredibly difficult and scary because I had no idea what was going on. And of course, I'm like, well, my doctor told me it's all in my head, so I must be losing my mind. I must be crazy, or it must be all in my head, right? And you know what? It wasn't. And it took me really hitting rock bottom to like start doing my own research and to learn, oh, I actually probably have Hashimoto's. My doctor's never tested me for that. I need a complete thyroid panel, and this journey that so many of us go through. And I remember, I asked if she would run the tests, and so I could see, do I have Hashimoto's and all of that. And when the nurse called with the results, she said, yeah, it's just as the doctor expected. So she suspected that I had Hashimoto's, like
never tested.
The vast majority of us in developed countries have Hashimoto's, but in the US, at least, we're not tested typically because it doesn't change it doesn't change the doctor's treatment protocol.
Yeah.
And that moment, I just was so done. I was so done. I remember getting in my car where nobody could hear me, and I just screamed. It was like this primal at the top of my lungs, like, I can't go on like this. I can't be the person I want to be. I'm barely getting through the day. I'm not the mom I want to be for my son. I just don't, I'm a passionate person. Like, my fire was smoldering. And, the beautiful part of that rock bottom point is you bounce, right? You start coming up. And that was when I started really just dove headfirst into the research, reading every book that I could. And oh my gosh, I couldn't believe all the things I was learning that, I had been told, oh, you don't need to change your diet. It won't really make a difference. Just eat less, exercise more. Come to find out, well, with Hashimoto's, there's a lot more to it. Diet does make a difference, and over exercising, like I was on a calorie restricted diet and over exercising to try to maintain my weight, which was really just making things worse. I had to learn about not just the food I ate, but really every aspect of my lifestyle and self-care and on and on. And while I wouldn't, choose it, it ultimately was one of the best things that ever happened to me, because it taught me so much about how to take care of myself, and ignited this passion in me that, was born on that day in that car with that primal scream that I can't stand the thought of anyone else going through what I went through, and losing, the first 4 years of my son's life, feeling tired all day, every day. I'll never get that back. That fuels my fire every day. And so that was transformative. And here I am, it's been 5 or 6 years when I made that shift and I got the full thyroid panel and found out I had Hashimoto's. I got a new doctor. I am still working with a naturopath here where I live in Western Montana. It was like, this is my best local choice here for holistic or functional or integrative care. And it was literally just a few months before I got my life back. And our first conversation, it was like, you need to think about your sleep, about your stress management. Number one, think about what you're eating. We're going she taught me about anti-inflammatory eating and all this stuff. And then of course we did some root cause testing. We found some underlying root cause factors. I had gut dysbiosis. And when we started treating that with really just some supplements, basically, like, it was a matter of days before I got my energy back. And it felt like someone had flicked the light switch in my body back on after it being off for 4 years. Like, I didn't even think it was possible to feel like myself again. I had forgotten what that felt like, to have energy, to wake up. I remember going for a run. Like, I don't enjoy running. My husband was like, I've never seen you go for a run willingly. I'm like, I have energy again. I just want to do something with it, So, and also, it wasn't just how I felt. I was seeing those metrics on paper, from where we started. My antibodies, within like 6 months, I had cut them in half.
Wow.
And had cut a lot of my symptoms out. I was just feeling better, and I was so empowered.
Yeah.
And I was listening to my body. I was learning all this stuff. And so that was really the beginning of my healing journey, was then. So, 2011 initial diagnosis, 2015 was really when I think that's when my thyroid healing journey began. And when I started Hypothyroid Chef, and then ended up, doing thyroid refresh and thyroid 30 for a while. And now back to Hypothyroid Chef as a health coach and a recipe developer and a thyroid advocate, and just a passionate and informed patient who wants to help others.
Yeah. Amen. I feel like I was like, yes, me too. Not all
but
of
it's
that,
not,
but
it's not a unique story though.
No,
it's like,
it's not. Yeah.
I tell that story and people say, yep, me too.
Yeah.
I have not the same, but similar.
Yeah. Yeah. We all end up with a slightly unique lifestyle, and maybe a slightly unique, thyroid-friendly food lifestyle, and we will dive into this, but there's so many core similarities, aren't there, and a lot of core things that just are good foundations that work for most people, particularly with the autoimmune element. Because like you say, it's all that anti-inflammatory. I just say my whole approach to life is anti-inflammatory.
I love that. Yeah, that's a perfect way to put it.
I think with the autoimmune aspect, it's all about reducing inflammation. So that's food, stress, exercise, sleep, the way I think, reducing toxins, all of that is all about reducing inflammation. So, and actually I just got my thyroid antibodies from when they were first tested were never in the thousands. Like, they've never been, super, super high, but I don't think, from my understanding, whether they're super high or not doesn't matter so much, as more the direction that they're going. But I just this week saw my doctor. I get my bloods done every 3 months, and my thyroid antibody levels are at the cutoff now. Like, so almost below the you know, the recommended amount. Do you know what I
That's
mean? Like,
amazing.
so it's
How
almost, I think you would call
exciting.
that remission, I think. I don't know. But almost, so it's like, I was like, it's the lowest I've ever been. And I'm like, see, it just works.
It does. It
Slow
really
and
does.
steady. And like, we're
Mhm.
talking years, not weeks or months, years and years.
Right.
But yeah, and it's definitely been up and down in that process, and it still will be up and down. But yeah, like you say, definitely
Mhm.
works. So we dive straight into all the food, and maybe we just talk first, because we're going to get into some, I want to have a chat with you about, well, what do you actually eat and how do you cook, and some great recipe ideas and how do you approach your day and all of that. But what's your take on a thyroid friendly diet?
Mhm. Yeah, that's a big question. And okay, so I'll start with like kind of the goals, I think. And this is, after interviewing a lot of amazing doctors and experts and nutritionists, and finding that, you can ask 5 experts and get 5 different answers on this, but there are really some common core principles. And those principles that I feel like most experts across the board agree on are that a thyroid friendly diet is gut healing, it's anti-inflammatory, it's nutrient dense, and ultimately it's personalized.
I like that.
So really to what the individual needs and what their unique dietary sensitivities and triggers and things like that are. There's a lot out there about all the foods we're supposed to avoid: gluten, dairy, soy, sugar, alcohol, caffeine, grains, things like that. But there is no one size fits all thyroid diet. As we know, you can't just give that cookie cutter diet to someone and say, off you go, this will cure all your thyroid problems.
Yeah. If only it was that easy.
Yeah. Because we're all different, and we all have different circumstances and personalities, and we're all at different seasons of life. Our hormones change over time, and that one constant though is that really this is one of the most empowering things you can do to discover like what is the right diet for you. And I think that those dietary templates, like going gluten-free or gluten-free dairy-free or paleo or AIP, make really good starting points and tools to discover what are my dietary no-nos and what really serves me. What do I feel really good eating? Sometimes I think about what can I get away with? Like, I love cheese. I used to be a cheesemonger, and I have eliminated
you poor thing.
yeah. I've eliminated dairy, for very long stretches to do some intensive like healing and reducing inflammation in my body and things like that. But at this point, 5-6 years in, I also know I can have a little bit of certain kinds of cheese, like aged raw milk cheeses, a little bit of Parmesan or Asiago. I can get away with that. It's a small amount. So those are just that's just an example. I want to share that, I think people can panic when they hear or start to think, I'm never going to be able to eat gluten or dairy or this or that again. It maybe isn't never, and maybe it's just like a little bit. Maybe it's really you're going to do a lot less like sugar or caffeine or things like that. But it really depends on the individual and on where you're at with your health, I think too. But overall, like as far as like what to eat, I don't like to just focus on what we shouldn't eat or what the experts say we should think about avoiding. I think like the 3 main pillars of what we benefit from a food standpoint as thyroid patients is clean animal protein, like your, wild caught seafood and your grass finished beef and your pastured poultry and things like that. And then lots of organic produce, especially vegetables, and then healthy fats.
Yeah.
So that's sort of the three-legged stool that, makes up my diet, makes up most of my recipes.
Yeah. So sort of meat and veg, meat and good fats, meat, veg.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But on Hypothyroid Chef, all my recipes are gluten-free. All are dairy-free. If I ever do have like a little Parmesan sprinkle, there's always like, here's an alternative you can use. Or, I do mostly paleo. I do a lot of autoimmune protocol because those templates give us that starting point. They give us a common language and they make it easier to search for recipes.
Yeah. I often say, if you search for paleo, it's kind of that's the way I search for recipes. And when I did my cookbook, originally it was going to be called paleo. It was sort of, I wrote it right when paleo was pretty big, it was pretty popular. There were around, at least in Australia, there were paleo cafes popping up. Now they seem to have gone. I didn't end up calling it that because I've got a couple of recipes in the end that are like Christmas favorites that aren't, and like my Rocky Road, that's like definitely not sugar-free, definitely, like, but in the end, I think I just called it gluten, dairy, sugar-free, mostly sugar-free, but it's, and it's paleo-ish. Like I would say my diet is paleo-ish. And when I share recipes, they're paleo, but I would eat paleo-ish is how I describe.
Right.
Yeah, because I think you're right. They're good search terms, good ways to, you're going to at least find gluten and dairy free if you're looking for paleo. The autoimmune paleo is that's a tougher road, isn't it? Yeah.
But warranted, I think, for some people at some points, and I've certainly used it several times, the autoimmune paleo or AIP, as, a means to an end.
Yeah. And I've found and I think this is part of the finding your unique diet. Like I've certainly found like paleo as a general principle works well for me, but like at the moment I'm just backing off on the almonds and like it's too many nuts. Sometimes it's a quantity thing with some of those extra things that come out in the autoimmune, like the eggs, nuts, seeds, nightshades. Eggs I seem okay with, nightshades hit and miss, raw tomatoes okay, cooked tomatoes aren't, capsicum no, so nuts are okay, but if I have too many of them and if I've made too many nice almond milk cakes then my digestion is out, and so it's the tweaking around the edges, isn't it? And like you said before, sometimes it depends. Like, and I've done years and years and years of gut healing too, but if you haven't, like maybe you can't be expecting to be able to play around too much on the edges too soon. But and it changes over time with you're stressed or you're not stressed, or is it Christmas time? Is it not Christmas time? Is it you've got lots of birthdays and celebrations, or and so it just goes those little ebb and flows.
Yeah. And I think that's like another, perfect example of what a bio individual or personalized thyroid healthy diet looks like. You've been on this road for a while, and it's not a 30-day thing. Yeah. It's lifelong. And really it's ultimately for not just your thyroid, but for your overall health and longevity and feeling vibrant and having that healthy glow and all of that. So it's just that mindset shift of, this is how I want to eat because this is how I want to feel. And, things like greatly reducing dairy in my diet, eliminating gluten. It's like, I'm happy to do that now. I don't really feel compelled to want to eat those things because I know what it does. And when you start to connect those dots, because you've done that process of making those dietary eliminations, giving your body the time it needs to heal, and then when it's time, reintroducing those foods, and you can see pretty clearly, oh, when I do this happens in my body. And now I just feel like certain foods lose their appeal when you can tell and know very clearly that they're not agreeing with you. Yeah. So I think that's, something I try to stress with people is any kind of elimination, it doesn't necessarily have to be forever. I know there are certain foods like gluten where it seems like most experts recommend all thyroid patients just eliminate gluten across the board. There's also thyroid patients who anecdotally say, I don't really feel like I need to do that. I don't see the benefit. So just, reiterating that it is different for each person. But yeah, getting there, it takes time and it takes that process. But the ultimate goal is to reintroduce and have a more diverse diet. And I think, like you, where I'm at now, because I'm not having like a major gut issue, or, I'm feeling pretty good these days, I have a little bit more wiggle room.
Yeah.
And I try to think of this like wearing a loose fitting garment, where I can enjoy a little bit more dietary freedom. And I find that makes things like socializing or the holidays a little bit less stressful.
Yeah.
I've also had holidays and seasons, the longest I've done on the elimination phase of the autoimmune protocol was 6 months.
Oh, that's
and that's a lot of cooking. It's a lot of dietary restriction. It's also a lot of healing. I mean, it was worthwhile. And I was doing this with the help of my naturopath because like another, gut flora imbalance had come up that I was really like trying to address. And so, we made this plan, and it was like the holidays, and she said, don't do this through the holidays. We could, you're okay. You can wait until after Christmas to start this. And, things like that I thought were good advice. So I had that time to kind of wrap my head around it and plan, get my family ready, things like that.
Yeah. So when you're, working with people wanting to transition towards I'm just going to call it a thyroid-friendly diet. Is that okay? Are you happy with that term? Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I know for me, and it sounds like for you, there's there's research and reading and understanding why and getting your head around it. There is a lot of mindset, isn't there, in terms of, and maybe grieving process. So do you sort of recommend diving all in or doing it gradually, or how do you suggest people transition quickly, slowly, or somewhere in between to a thyroid-friendly diet when they have just been eating kind of normal, like let's say normal?
Like a standard, eat everything diet. Here we call it the SAD diet, the standard American diet.
It works. The standard Australian diet works exactly. It's interchangeable. It's exactly the same.
My gosh.
Same. An acronym works. Yeah.
Oh, that's funny. I hadn't thought of that. Yeah, great question. Because I think this is where people get hung up. Like, I'm overwhelmed. Where do I even begin?
Yeah.
And this is one thing I learned after running so many seasons of Thyroid 30, which was like this 30-day wellness adventure. And everyone was sort of on their own path. I mean, that's the thing. We're all at different points on our healing journey. Some of us are both just starting out. Some of us may be years down the road. And, I think, first of all, speaking with your healthcare practitioner and making a collaborative decision with them based on like test results and having a clear picture of everything that's going on in your body, at least looking at like the main culprits, how's your gut doing? How are your micronutrients? How are your, all your thyroid labs, not just TSH? Let's look at everything and kind of talk about, with a medical professional, like, where should I start? Because that comes back to like, where am I at with my health? We certainly, would and still hear from people who are like bedridden and really can't function, and they're in a more serious health crisis. And I think in those scenarios, it's worthwhile to think about taking that all in huge leap and talking to a functional nutritionist, or, your holistic healthcare practitioner about, I think, I'm ready to do the autoimmune protocol. I really want to do some more intensive healing. If that's where you're at, I feel like that's really worth considering, researching, and talking to your healthcare provider about. if you're not there, if you're more like, I feel pretty okay, but I feel like I could feel better and I want to feel better, I'm a huge believer in the baby step approach.
Mm-hmm.
Huge believer. And I've used both, at different stages, and depending on how my health, it's that, journey, right? Things change over time. When you take the baby step approach, it's easier on your nervous system. You're less likely to trigger that fight or flight response. When we do something like when we do Whole30 for 30 days, which is very similar to paleo, they're like almost identical, really.
Yeah.
And we have this mindset of, I'm only doing this for 30 days and I'm just going to totally deny myself all these foods cold turkey. And I'm not knocking it, because I know, I believe in paleo and Whole30, and I use that.
Yeah.
But it's that mindset piece of, I'm only doing this for a set amount of time, and I'm just going to deny myself all this stuff, and I'll override the emotional piece, and things like that. We're less likely to stick with those changes. This is just the science of successful habit change. Smaller steps are more sustainable, period. So I find that while I've used those more intensive healing diets for periods of time to do more concentrated healing, my overall journey has been one of a lot of baby steps. And it took me, just starting with thinking about eliminating gluten, it took me a couple months to even be ready to do that. I absolutely cried tears. I was a chef. And I ate healthy. I felt like I ate healthy. I've always been a big proponent of whole foods, organic foods, homemade, non-processed, all of that. But I was still eating everything, gluten, dairy, sugar, etc. And I remember bursting into tears at a restaurant, looking at the menu and going, all these favorite things that I can't have anymore. And this is my identity. This is my livelihood. It changed my career. I was working as a cooking instructor, and I had to start turning down classes because I was like, I can't test and prepare all these recipes that I can't eat. I'm trying to make changes for my health. So I'm glad that you brought up that emotional aspect, because I think that we have to give ourselves some grace when possible with these big life transitions, because really thyroid healthy eating and thyroid healthy living, this is a lifelong journey. Yeah. And there's so many gifts to it. And I like that baby step approach takes that growth mindset, that this is the long run. This isn't just for 30 days. Yeah. And maybe I'm going to start with gluten, and then I'll start thinking about dairy, and then I'll start looking at my sugar, and then I'm going to look at my caffeine intake, or I'm going to not drink alcohol at all anymore, or, whatever it is. And our bodies sort of tell us over time, I think too, like, I know I find myself going, this is really bothering me. I feel like I'm kind of on a slippery slope with, drinking a little bit too much caffeine. I really want to focus on this for a while and pare back. And doing that just feels less overwhelming and easier to wrap my head around. And then I've been able to stick with those changes to where now it's like, this is my new normal. Yeah. It doesn't take so much effort. It's just my family's used to it. I'm used to it. It's the groceries we buy. It's the recipes I prepare and share on Hypothyroid Chef. Like, this is how I live. So,
it's a lifestyle. It becomes part of.
It really is a lifestyle.
And I think, I think I'm probably similar. I can be a little bit all or nothing, my personality. So sometimes the all in hardcore stuff works for a time, like almost as a bit of a reset. Yes. And then it's like an ease out, and it's a bit like a relax, and then hold on a minute, I've relaxed a bit. Not relaxed too much, but like a few things that are creeping in that I'm not feeling good. Okay, I'm going to just tighten it up a bit. But over time that I'm probably not going as far out as I used to. And, I'm just sort of living a little closer to that, what works for me. But similar to you, like I run 30-day challenges, but I've changed it a bit in the last couple of years, and I've switched it to, I call it now Kickstart Your Thyroid-Friendly Lifestyle. And it's not just about the food, it's also about the mindset, and it's a kickstart. So don't see this as it's just ends on day 31. This is to kickstart. And if all I'm going to share is sort of paleo-ish, but if just giving up gluten is a first, that's fine. You just do that.
Like, if that's where you're at, meet yourself where you are.
And I've got one lady who does, like, I run it as a group 2 to 3 times a year. And I've got one lady that's done the last few. And this time she's like, I'm just giving up. I really feel like I need to give up coffee. I know I've got some adrenal issues. So coffee and that she had with almond milk, it's the only change she'd made, because she was already kind of gluten, dairy free. She said, oh my gosh, I've got so much more energy. She said, I've actually lost a couple of kilos, which I wasn't expecting. My reflux is gone. And she said, and it's been really great. But that's that I've already done all of that healing, and the other changes are already part of it. Now I'm just tweaking it. And I said, isn't this lovely? We can just get to the point where it's just about tweaking it. And actually, I do feel better when I do that, but it takes often years to get to that point. And so just understanding that mindset, as you say, that it's a journey, it's a process. And but when you've got that mindset that, well, I've got to live like this for the rest of my life. Like I have to live with my thyroid health, hopefully being good forever. So I don't have to get all of this right within a month. Okay.
Absolutely.
I can actually take some time. It's actually going to take probably a few years to really kind of get in the groove and find what works and do some healing. It's okay.
Yeah. I couldn't agree more. And I love that approach to your 30-day challenges of let's kickstart your, thyroid healthy diet and lifestyle. And that's with Thyroid 30, the way we approach that, because it was like a concentrated 30 days. You're playing on a team and you're scoring yourself on all these aspects of thyroid healthy eating and living. And the way we sort of approached it was, this is an opportunity for you to really do some focused healing and to put more energy and effort and intention into it so you can make more progress. But when the real work begins is when the 30 days are up, and then you continue this and you assimilate this into your lifestyle and you make it your new normal, so that the body can body, mind, spirit, everything can adapt to those changes. And then, you get to that point where it doesn't take so much effort. Now I'm going to build on that. And that's the beauty of, the stepping stone approach. I've done, the times that I've done really strict, like autoimmune protocol, I've run into this challenge where when I'm done, when I like even that 6 months, that's a long time to do something, and you get used to it. And it's like, I'm going to totally stick with this, but then the 6 months is up and you're kind of ready to go. It's hard to stick with that, and obviously, any autoimmune protocol expert will tell you the elimination phase is not meant to be long-term. The goal is, to go through those reintroduction phases and all of that. But it can be hard, I think, with that all-in approach, not to, when it's done, just go back to where you were before, or you know what, I don't want to diminish the progress people make doing that, because sure, maybe I backslid on a lot of things, but it's like that, you make a big leap and then maybe you come back down a little bit, but you're not where you started.
Oh, totally.
You've still made a lot of progress. So there's more than one way to do this. Completely. And I think just honoring your own journey and letting it be what it needs to be for you
Yeah.
is the most important thing, and letting it be okay if just going gluten-free right now for you, because that was
massive.
most of the people, I health coached were just going gluten-free for the first time. And even that is a huge step for a lot of people when you're doing that for the first time.
Yeah, completely. And so how do you do that? How did you do that? The gluten-free? And like, let's talk some food, because I think you're right. That sort of seems to be, I mean, personally, I've probably, because I did the gluten first, I found the dairy harder to give up. But I do think for most people, going gluten-free just sounds overwhelming. What on earth do I eat, particularly for breakfast? How do I give up bread? What do I, so maybe can you give us either some replacement ideas, or like, what do you eat for breakfast? Like what's your, how do you I don't know, how do we go gluten-free on a food basis? So, assuming we've got the mindset, like what are the practical bits?
Well, I think one of the pitfalls of going gluten-free for the first time is we can want to replace all the gluten containing foods that we're used to just across the board. So instead of eating, pizza, now we're just going to do gluten-free pizza, and we're going to do gluten-free bread and waffles and pancakes and pasta and bagels and on and on and on. And there's, I think that those foods can really serve a purpose and giving us some freedom and some wiggle room. Like, I know the holidays are coming up, right? And I absolutely have a bag of like a measure for measure gluten-free flour blend that enables me to do something like make a batch of my grandmother's Christmas cookies and eat them without violating my dietary hard line, which is gluten, and so I think foods like that can serve a purpose, but when we just trade across the board and all of a sudden now we're just eating all the gluten-free versions of the same foods, we kind of cheat ourselves out of the benefit, because a lot of those foods are still kind of hard on the gut. There's a lot of funky starches and things that are difficult to digest. And we're really, one of the best things about going gluten-free is replacing some less nutrient dense staples with more nutrient dense staples. So I think that mindset piece is big with gluten, in that, like, adopting some new ways of eating. Like right now in the Northern Hemisphere, it's getting chilly, and I almost always have some kind of soup in the fridge. It's like soups are my, salads of the cold weather months. In the summer, but always got like a bottle or two of homemade vinaigrette or salad dressing. And I've got the salad spinner with the clean salad greens ready to go. And so there's some grilled chicken in there and things that I can just throw together, because trust me, I'm not waking up and like cooking this massive home cooked, like, from scratch gluten-free breakfast every morning.
What do I eat? Needing the bread, needing the gluten-free bread. Yeah. Well, what do you eat? What would be a typical breakfast for you, Ginny?
Yeah. So I really love, and again, this kind of goes back to that mindset thing of sort of letting go of some of our old ideas about what breakfast is. The Danish, the sugary yogurt, the
cereal and toast,
cereal with the cow's milk poured over it, things like that. Now I might do something like I make big batches of homemade sausage, breakfast sausage, and I'll make those patties. I might do that on the weekend. And that's one like just practical tip that I think is really helpful, is maybe just thinking about like one day a week where you do a little bit of extra cooking of foods that you can eat, for you, for your family, if they're on your same plan or whatever. But I try to do at least a little bit of batch cooking every weekend. So say I make like a big batch of breakfast sausage, and then I've got, 3 pounds of that.
Is breakfast sausage, because we don't use that term in Australia, but is that minced meat, like ground?
Yeah.
And do you make it into a hamburger patty?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes. Okay. So we would call that. Yeah. Okay. We would probably just call that a hamburger patty. A sausage for us is like in the sausage casing, and it's
in the casing.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is like so like a ground meat with herbs, fresh herbs, maybe some garlic, make it really savory, and then I cook that up and I can freeze those.
Yeah.
And reheat those for breakfast with, a couple handfuls of some greens. If the weather's cold, I might wilt the greens, have a little sausage, a couple handfuls of maybe some fresh blueberries. Maybe I drizzle a little olive oil over the top. So really like still whole foods, but basic and quick and easy too. Yeah. So that's a favorite breakfast of mine. I also really like, especially in the cold weather, breakfast soups. I just put one up on the site not too long ago that was lemony zucchini basil.
Oh, yum. Yeah, that just sounds nice. It sounds clean. Fresh.
And then you can have, your gut healing bone broth in there and the fresh herbs and the lemon. And, it's like something that feels really good to drink in the morning. I can heat it up and put it in a to-go mug and drink it while I'm taking my son to school before I get to work for the day. If I'm busy, I can, or drink it at my desk or, so I really like breakfast soups, but yeah, it takes a while to sort of get used to some of those ideas, and also just leftovers. I think, I cook like once a day. I'm not necessarily wanting to or trying to cook, and I mean like cook, like in the kitchen, making a mess with all the dishes, 3 times a day. But we do that once a day. And I always try to have leftovers of something that I can then turn around and make into breakfast and lunch the next day.
Yeah. So getting rid of some of those preconceived ideas of what is breakfast food, lunch food, dinner food, and it's just food that you can have at any time of day.
Yeah.
Is a helpful mindset shift, isn't it? Yeah. Yeah. I find that I actually do really love breakfast, and I can eat sort of breakfast and often do at breakfast time or lunchtime. And so I can do the same. I can have some leftovers, but I make a really nice grain-free muesli that's, coconut and nuts and seeds and, that sort of thing. And so often I will have that for lunch. Like I'll often have an egg and maybe some paleo piece of toast, or I've made some nice waffles, like sweet potato. It's really just sweet potato and egg, but like savory waffles, I guess. Nice with an egg and some wilted greens for breakfast, but I'm just as likely to have that for lunch because I work from home. I can do that, and I'm not, like you say, getting everything out. It's fairly quick and easy. Or having in the winter again, I guess the bone broths, or having the salad ready. Just you can just get a handful of greens out. It doesn't have to be fancy salad. Just a handful of greens and.
Well, and I love the waffle idea too. I do like some gluten-free waffles. I think I've got one on the site that's like a pumpkin spice waffle with chocolate chips. And the thing I love about waffles, that's a perfect example of like a weekend batch cooking. My son might like just his plain regular waffles. And I'll tell you, my husband and son are not really interested in being gluten or dairy free. They're just not. So, and they'll happily eat, my gluten-free things that I make, but I might make like a different something for them and freeze. Like that's the great thing about waffles. You can freeze them. So making a big batch of waffles, and then I, will do a batch of, like, just recently I did a batch of buckwheat waffles. Which is an awesome gluten-free flour. You have to blend it with some other, you can't do like 100% buckwheat flour. I had to mix it with some of that measure for measure, but that's something that, not every day, but I can pull out of the freezer, put in the toaster. I'll do some avocado. I might put a little like, that seaweed sesame shake on it. It's kind of salty just for seasoning. And, so things like that are really nice because breakfast is a challenge because we're in such a rush. So many of us, it's not something that we need to be convenient.
Yeah. And if you were to sort of open your fridge now? Like, what would be the things that we would typically see in your fridge?
Right now, like right this minute,
Well,
I will
I'm not
tell you
asking.
exactly what's in there.
Okay.
So I made a big batch last weekend of this Italian minestrone soup there's no pasta in it, but it's made with some ground Italian sausage, kale, carrots, fennel. I did put some white beans in there. I do a little beans from time to time, just tons of veggies. And I've eaten that for breakfast. I've eaten that for lunch. We had it for dinner a couple nights. Really delicious. There's kale in there, just so easy. And it makes like a pretty big pot. So that's really nice. We also have some leftover toasted quinoa. I do eat gluten-free grains occasionally. And yesterday for lunch, I took some of the quinoa and some of this like really hearty vegetable rich minestrone and mixed those together. So it was more like a pilaf almost. That was delicious. Last night for dinner, we had roast chicken and put that on a bed of veggies like, carrots and fennel and celery root and garlic, and just put the chicken right on top of that bed of veggies, pop it in the oven for, a little over an hour, and you've got a 1-pan dinner. And leftovers, that's what I had for lunch today, was leftover roast chicken and vegetables. And I love that, especially this time of year. I know it's not like a big summertime thing that we make, but in the warmer months, like, where you guys are just coming into summer right now,
that's right. Yeah.
In the warmer months, it would be similar, just look a little different, like I mentioned, there might be some grilled meats in there left over from dinner. We grill a lot of vegetables. We have a lot of salads, things like that. So a lot more. I love warm weather cooking because it's so simple. There's so little you really have to do to it because there's so much fresh food that's in season. And I always say, just give me like some garlic, some really good extra virgin olive oil, and like some fresh herbs, and done. That's pretty much all that. And like some, clean animal protein and veggies, and,
it doesn't have to be complicated, does it?
It does not.
Even from as a non-chef, watching all those, kind of cooking shows on TV, you think, it does. I mean, obviously some of them are ridiculously complicated, but a lot of it is just simple food, just very quality ingredients, cooked beautifully. It's just simple and presented nicely. Like, I think, look, not every meal you eat has to look like it's going to end up in a cookbook, but I do think I don't just like to slap it on the plate. I like it to look a little bit nice, because we do eat with our eyes, and I think but it can just be simple, like you say, onion, garlic, olive oil, herbs and spices,
right? Easy. It doesn't take a lot. And I think that makes me think about the family thing too. I'm cooking for a kind of finicky 10-year-old and a husband who absolutely supports my dietary goals, but who's also just going to eat whatever he wants, like, so just an example, like, what's one of our kind of staple meals? We love burger night. Burgers are probably my son's like number one favorite thing to eat. So for me, burger night is deluxe burger salad night. It's all the same stuff. But I'm just tweaking it a little bit because, my son wants the bun and he wants the cheese, and he, and he can have that. And I actually feel like when I make my burger salad and I do it up with, bacon and diced avocado and caramelized onions, and, I make like the special sauce and everything, I feel like they're missing out. Like, I never feel like anymore, like, oh, they get to eat what they want, and I have to have this, compromise meal. I don't feel that way at all. And that's what I try to share a lot of on Hypothyroid Chef, are those like real world recipes. This is what we eat, I always
Well,
tell
and that's,
people,
yeah,
don't get
yeah,
intimidated by the whole chef thing.
yeah,
It's not rocket science. It's
yeah.
just cooking.
Yeah,
And it
yeah,
can be simple, and the simple stuff is the best stuff.
yeah. And like, I agree. Like my family, I've got 3 teenage boys, so we go through a lot of food, and a husband. So there's a huge
Oh,
amount of food that
wow.
gets cooked in our
Oh
house.
my gosh.
Yeah.
3 teenagers.
Yeah, so they're
Wow.
18, 15, and 13, 3 teenage boys.
Oh my
So yeah,
gosh.
there's a lot of food that gets consumed in our house.
Yeah.
And none of them, my eldest son is sort of, he's been doing a gluten-free mostly diet for a couple of months. But generally, like, they don't eat, I'm the one that, same like in your family, but I'll just do, that variation. So we actually had steak sandwiches for dinner last night. So just like the burger, and burger's a
Yeah.
common meal in our house too. It's the one of the few meals that no one complains about, And
Right.
and I bought some nice sourdough buns for all of them to have their steak sandwich. My oldest son, who's the one going gluten-free, was working last night, so he wasn't home. And I just had my steak sandwich with the salad. And sandwich, no sandwich, but
right.
the steak with the salad, and it was still delicious. And I've just got to use a knife and fork instead of my fingers. And I looked at all the bread, and it looked nice, but like, oh, that would be I know that would just sit heavy in my tummy.
Oh,
but,
yeah. It
but
doesn't even appeal.
No, it doesn't even appeal. And so, like, they're easy. There are some really easy tweaks, so that I'm not cooking, like you're saying, not cooking 2 separate meals. Although when they were littler, I'd be more inclined to do that. But not too, but just, like they might eat the gluten-free pasta. Like, I'll buy gluten-free pasta for them, but I'll just have whatever they're having with pasta on a whole bed of salad greens, or zucchini noodles, or cauliflower rice, or something like that, instead of the pasta or the rice. It's the same core. Or even if I'm making like a creamy chicken pasta, which is one of my kids' favorites, I'll just pull out my part of the chicken before I add the cream.
Yeah.
It's not.
Oh, that sounds so good. Yeah. And, my son's still, he's growing up so too fast, but, he's still in that like little kid kind of phase where one thing we do, my husband and I will love to do like a Thai curry with coconut milk, or like a stir fry with all the ginger and the tons of veggies and the sauce. And we love to like make the stir fry sauce and all of that, mix it all up in the same pan. Well, my son oftentimes he'll prefer like that, but just sort of broken down. Like, he always says, I want my veggies raw and crunchy. I don't want them cooked and slimy.
So mine. Mine
all
haven't
the
outgrown
sauce.
that. They still do that. I still have a platter of the chopped carrot, cucumber, tomatoes, snow peas.
Right.
They're just starting to even do the whole tossed salad. So often I will have a bit of a tossed salad and the vegetable platter. So mine haven't quite outgrown that, where your 10-year-old.
Right. Yeah. So, we're kind of in that like in between where like he just had salad the other night with dinner, with like dressing on it. And my husband and I were so excited, like, oh, he's eating salad. But just, like on those nights where we're making something that's a little bit more like spicy or saucy or all mixed together, like little kids often don't like, I wouldn't make a separate meal for him as much as just break down what we're having. So he's got his chicken, then he's got some carrot sticks and some broccoli spears and some, peppers, and, maybe they're having rice and I've got like cauliflower rice to have my stir fry on, or it's just those little tweaks that feel really doable. They don't take a ton of extra time. Everybody's happy. People might say, oh, well, you have to make rice and cauliflower rice. Sure, but then I've got like leftover, I can take that leftover cauliflower rice and turn that into breakfast the next morning with, just a little bit of, I just love like all the odds and ends of leftovers from the fridge and putting different concoctions together for breakfast and lunch and things like that.
Yeah. Look, I think we could keep talking for ages, but I know it's nearly your dinner time. Can I ask you one more question? Have you got time for one more?
Of course.
so can we talk sweet treats? Because I
Yeah.
think that's the other area that people really struggle with is is the dessert. Even if we just focused on dessert and sweet treats, what do you do with, I know we want to minimize that, but what do you do? Or have you got a couple of ideas or easy switches or favorite recipes for like a nice dessert or a sweet treat?
Yeah. Well, anything with chocolate, I'm in.
Yeah.
I just was the other day, we just had Halloween. So there's like Halloween candy everywhere. And I think of it as like temptation mitigation, right? And a life with no treats, it's like, that's just sad. I want treats sometimes too.
Yeah.
Of course it's like the whole gluten-free junk food thing. You got to avoid the pitfall of just, oh, I'm eating all these paleo desserts. See, I'm paleo now, just having paleo desserts all the time.
Yeah.
That's probably not going to get you where you want to be with your health goals, right? But I think it is important to have those treats, right? So there's a recipe on my site for pecan date dreams, I call them, but I really think of it as like a candy bar replacement. It tastes like I'm thinking you probably don't have this in Australia, but Snickers bars. It's like
we do have
caramel
Snickers.
and okay.
Yep,
Snickers. It's kind of like a Snickers and an Almond Joy, like met and had a baby. And it's so simple because it takes 20 minutes.
Date. Yeah, that sounds good.
I take a date and I make a slit in it and take the pit out. So it's just like a baked potato, right? Yep. Split open. And then for the filling, I take coconut butter and blend it up with a little bit of pecans, and I put a little cinnamon in there, and I think a little bit of maple syrup for sweetener. And that's the filling. That's what I think of as like the candy bar nougat filling.
Yeah. And
then I put a pecan half on top. And then I just drizzle that with a little bit of melted dark chocolate that's, dairy-free, soy-free. And I love, the sweet, salty combo. So I almost always sprinkle a little bit of flaky sea salt on top. And it's like the perfect 2-bite size. You can make 20 of them in 20 minutes. Put them in the fridge. You can freeze them if you don't want to have them in the fridge. But things like that are what help me feel like I get to have a treat too. I feel good about, the healthier aspects of this. Yes, it's a little higher in sugar and not something I should eat, all day long, but I feel satisfied and it's helping me not raid my son's Halloween candy.
Yeah, fair. Yeah. Look, I love dates. The medjool, you're talking about the big medjool dates. In fact, when our supermarket has them, they have them in the big like 5 kilo boxes, and every now and again they do a big sale, like $10 a kilo or something, and I'll just buy a whole box. So at the moment we've got a spare fridge, and I've got a whole box, and they last for months. So and you got to have the space, but I use them in a lot. And I don't know, have you got that date recipe on your Instagram?
Yeah, maybe, I think I just posted that.
Maybe I saw that because I went and like, oh, that's it. Maybe because it could have been on your, I think that I was looking at, I made something similar. So I'm like, oh, did I get it from you? Or you sort of lose track where you get the ideas from.
Yeah,
but I did something not quite the same, but similar with the splitting the date. I put a bit of peanut butter in it, and then just made some chocolate with the cacao butter and the raw cacao and maple syrup, and then just kind of dipped the whole date in the chocolate and sprinkled it with coconut. And so
yum.
Yeah, the dates, I can, when you put them, do you put them in the freezer? Like I'll freeze the dates, and then it's like a chewy caramel.
Oh yeah. And I saw your I think I was looking at your cookbook. I am a sucker for mint chocolate. Anything you had this like chocolate bark stuff that had I want to say it was like a pistachio and mint filling in between like 2 layers of chocolate. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I think, oh,
I'm going to have to try to find it and make
yeah.
that. It looked amazing.
I know. Yes, I do know. It was a mince, like a mince slice. I don't think it had pistachios
Yes.
in it, but yeah,
Mint
yeah,
slice.
yeah. Was it like a
I
mince
thought there was
slice?
some kind of nut in there. Maybe not,
I
but
know it could have been it. Yeah, it definitely would have had some sort of nut in there. But yeah, I love chopped mint too. A couple
yeah.
of drops of peppermint essential oil, and oh, yum. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. So
So
yeah.
yeah, so we can still have those sort of treats, and
Yeah.
I don't,
I like smoothies too. And I know that's not necessarily like a treat thing, but um I, this is one of those areas where like different experts feel differently. Some experts are more, cautionary about, oh, be careful about how much fruit you eat. And I get that the sugar can be hard on our microbiome, especially if we're dealing with things like candida overgrowth and things like that. But I know that I feel better, I think, from the vitamin C of like, especially like a berry smoothie. And I'll mix it up with coconut water or maybe a little like light coconut milk. And I'll put my collagen powder in there, and fruit there's so much about it that's so good for us. There's so much fiber and nutrients. And I notice when I'm starting to, like, when my sweet tooth is kind of flaring, if I have, a smoothie in the afternoon or something like that, it sort of scratches that itch without having to make like a dessert per se. Just have some fruit, and I'll always, mixing that, trying to counter that like sugar blast with some protein, either, in the smoothie somehow or alongside it. But
so
yeah,
do
I
you
find that
use the
smoothies
collagen?
kind of help too.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I went through lots of smoothies in the past, and then I was like, that was probably more when I was having like your whey-based protein powders. And I'm like, what sort of protein powder do I use? And so I think I've switched now to the collagen, a bit like you just said, the collagen powder instead of a protein, like a, whey-based protein powder.
Yeah.
And so, I've definitely had stages where I've had smoothies lots for breakfast. Not so much recently, but I do like a good smoothie. Now coming into summer, I'm probably more likely to have a smoothie, or like I'll just whiz up frozen fruit and to make like a fruit ice cream. And sometimes I'll just have that with the sprinkling of, the muesli that I make. And that's a nice dessert.
Yum.
Like frozen banana whipped up, like in the do you have a Thermomix? Do you know what a Thermomix
yeah,
is?
I have a Vitamix. Yeah.
So blend it up in that.
Mm-hmm.
It just makes like a ice cream. It's sort of creamy. And
I love that. And I've totally done that. And it's so easy. And it's amazing how much it is like ice cream. And it's like, there's no sugar, there's no sweetener.
Yeah. It's just the fruit. Yeah.
Just the fruit. Yeah. Yeah. I do put collagen. I've been really on a collagen kick and trying to see like what happens if I have this daily. So I've been putting
noticed. I haven't done that.
I've been putting it in my morning tea, and it does help a lot with, I think, skin and hair and things like that. But one thing I recently learned about that as a protein source is that it isn't actually a complete protein. It doesn't have all 8 essential amino acids for your body to turn it into muscle, basically.
Okay.
So while it does add some protein to your smoothies and drinks, without like some actual, animal protein like meat, fish, poultry, etc., you're going to be missing some of those essential amino acids.
Right. Okay. Oh, that's good to know. Yeah. So it's not a complete meal replacement in that sense, but it's probably going to balance out some of those sugars, when you're having a smoothie. Yeah. Okay.
Because it can be hard to find protein powders that are compliant with whatever diet we're on. And that was kind of new to me. I was like, I didn't realize that wasn't a complete protein until recently. So just something to be aware of.
No, that's
I know a lot of people use pea protein. Pea kind of falls into that gray area with paleo because it's technically a legume.
Yeah.
Yeah. But a lot of protein powders have whey and dairy and things that.
Yeah, I think that's probably why I've kind of not been on the smoothie bandwagon as much as I have been in the past. But yeah, totally open to having them with the collagen, as you know, if I was going to have one, have it with the collagen. And I have plenty of other animal proteins, so I think on a personal level I wouldn't be too worried if the collagen wasn't the complete protein, because I know I'm getting enough of it other times in my day. So it probably just depends on.
Oh, I'm still totally I don't think you're going to do any harm by adding it,
No, but that's good. I didn't know that about that amino acid
and it's
profile,
still very, all those like the gut healing, and there's so many of those building blocks of, the skin, the hair, the nail support, the gut support, and all of that is so awesome about collagen.
Yeah. Well, that's I always learn something new when I'm talking to people, so that's good. Ginny, I'm going to let you go because you've got dinner to have and a night to have with your family. And if I don't end it now, I'll keep talking to you forever. But I really want to thank you so much for for your time today, for all of the information you've shared, the recipe ideas, the health tips. We're going to have a lot of fun sharing this over the next, once it comes out. And I know people are going to get a lot of, really positive and practical information from it. So thank you.
I hope so. Yes. Thank you so much for having me, Annabelle. This has been super fun, and it's such a pleasure to meet you and connect. So thank you.
Yeah. And look, I will put all of the links for how to connect with you, Ginny, in the show notes. But I know you're Hypothyroid Chef on Instagram. Is that sort of the best social media for people to follow you?
Yeah, I'm most active on Instagram at Hypothyroid Chef. Yep, no space.
Yeah, and otherwise, it's hypothyroidchef.com is your website. Is that right?
That's right. Yeah.
So connecting with Ginny. We were saying before too that email is a great way to connect with us, because social media is becoming a little more hit and miss sometimes. So I'm sure you've got ways for people to connect via email with you as well. So please do that.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Annabelle.
Yeah, thanks, Ginny. My pleasure. Well, thank you so much for watching this episode of Let's Talk Thyroid. I would love it if you enjoyed it, if you would hit subscribe and the bell. That would be really helpful. Even more helpful, actually, would be to share it with someone else who you know has thyroid issues or you think would benefit from listening. That really is part of my mission, I suppose, is to spread the message of positive and practical approach to managing your thyroid health, so that people really kind of have more energy to get on with living their life and not just some kind of trudging through each day. So spreading that word really genuinely helps other people feel better, live better, be better. The best way that you can connect with me is through my website, which is annabellebateman.com. From there, really, you'll be able to connect in all the other ways. I would love it if you would join my Facebook community group. There's lots of great support there. It's all free. That's just being with like-minded people. But from the website, you can also book a strategy session with me. So if you're feeling a bit overwhelmed, not too sure where to start, then book a strategy session. There's also freebies to download and links to look at my online courses or purchase some essential oils or my cookbook. So that's really the hub, would be annabellebateman.com. But look forward to connecting with you and just being in this thyroid health journey together. Have a great day. Bye.
The information presented and discussed in this podcast is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease and should not be used as a substitute for proper advice from a qualified professional.